The average American spends over $12,500 a year on healthcare. Anxiety medications are at an all-time high, and we are the most medicated population on Earth. Yet in Japan, a country that works famously long hours and eats white rice 3 times a day, the rates of chronic stress, obesity, and mental burnout are a fraction of ours. And it is not genetics. It is not magic. It is a completely different operating system for the mind. I have spent years living in Japan, sitting in silent temples, failing at meditation in Kyoto, and having conversations with elderly shopkeepers who radiated a calm I have rarely seen in the West. What I found were 20 specific philosophies, mental frameworks that act as a daily software for the soul. Some of these are so simple they will shock you. Others are so genius you will wonder why no one ever told you. By the end of this countdown, you will have a complete toolkit to build a fortress of inner peace that no external chaos can breach. Let us start with number 20. 20. Oubaitori, the death of comparison. Your inner chaos does not start with your workload. It starts when you look at your neighbor's plate, your colleague's salary, or a stranger's perfectly curated vacation photos. The Japanese have a word to kill this anxiety instantly: Oubaitori. It is a visual concept taken from nature. It refers to the 4 trees that bloom in spring: the cherry, the plum, the peach, and the apricot. Each one buds, blossoms, and bears fruit in its own distinct season. The cherry tree does not feel shame because the plum tree bloomed first. It lives entirely according to its own internal clock. I remember standing in a small orchard in Nara during early March, the plum trees already heavy with blossoms of white and deep pink, while the cherry branches nearby were still bare, their buds tight and green. The air smelled faintly of honey and damp wood. A gardener was raking the fallen petals without any hurry. He did not look at the cherries with impatience. He knew they were not late. They were just living their own spring. This is not just poetic fluff. When I first moved to Osaka, I was trapped in a spiral of comparison with other writers. I was checking their subscriber counts, analyzing their sentence structures, and secretly despairing. An older Japanese friend saw my tension and simply pointed to a peach tree out the window and said the word Oubaitori. It hit me like a physical blow. You are not behind. You are just a different species of tree. To practice this today, catch yourself in the act of horizontal comparison. The moment you feel that sting of envy, visualize the 4 trees. Say to yourself, I'm a peach tree, they are a cherry tree. I do not need to bloom in April. My harvest comes in August. Feel the weight of that rhythm in your chest. Your timeline is a private piece of music that the charts cannot hear. This shift from competitive anxiety to patient growth is the first crack in the wall of your ego, letting the light of peace seep in. 19. Datsuzoku, a break from the grind. We often think peace comes from perfecting our daily schedule. But Datsuzoku proposes the opposite. It means an escape from convention, a deliberate break from the daily routine. Think of the monk who leaves the safety of the temple to wander into the mountains, possessing nothing but a bowl and a robe, suddenly encountering a world of wonder because he stripped away the familiar. You do not need to shave your head. You need to break the tyranny of your predictable loops. In Tokyo, I noticed that the most serene salarymen were not the ones who drank every night, but the ones who, once a week, took a completely unpredictable route home. They might step into a Shinto shrine they had never visited or sit in a jazz bar in a neighborhood they did not belong to. I tried it myself one Tuesday after a day of dead ends and digital noise. Instead of taking the Chuo line back to my apartment, I exited at a random station, Kichijoji, and walked toward a narrow alley I had never seen. There was a tiny soba shop with a Norin curtain flapping in the dusk breeze. I ate hot noodles alone, in a silence that felt like a cool cloth on a fevered forehead. That single deviation reset my mind more than a weekend of passive rest. Datsuzoku is not a vacation. Vacations are often stressful, planned productions. Datsuzoku is spontaneous deviation. When you break the shell of the routine, the mind stops being a rigid machine and becomes fluid again. Try it tomorrow. Wake up and do not look at your phone for the first hour. Take a cold shower if you usually take warm ones. Walk backward on your treadmill if you use one. It sounds stupid, but by shattering the expected pattern, you shock the brain out of its depressive rumination and into the present moment. Anxiety cannot survive in a world that is suddenly new. 18. Shizen, the courage to be unmanufactured. So much of our mental exhaustion comes from performance fatigue. We are constantly acting. We manage our professional persona, our social media mask, and our polite in-law face. Shizen means naturalness without pretense. It is a state of being where you act with the spontaneity and originality of nature itself. It is the opposite of forced, contrived behavior. A Shizen garden is not a wild, chaotic forest. It is a space that looks effortless but is deeply, intentionally natural. I learned its true meaning at a tiny tea house in Uji. The master, a woman in her 70s with knotted hands, moved to scoop the matcha powder not like a robot following a script, but like a stream finding its path downhill. Her sleeve rustled against the tatami with a whisper I can still hear. She was not performing calm. She was calm, and every gesture was a ripple from that stillness. Applying this to daily life means stopping the performance. When I was struggling with the rigid politeness of Japanese business culture, I felt suffocated. But then I observed a Zen master serving tea. His movements were polite, yes, but they were not robotic. They were an extension of his breathing. He was not acting like a calm person. He was a calm person. Shizen invites you to stop self-monitoring. Speak with your real voice. Say no when you want to say no, not with aggression, but with the simple honesty of a river that does not flow uphill. Feel the relief in your shoulders when you drop the artificial weight of pretense. The next time you are in a conversation that demands a fake smile, notice the muscular effort it costs. Then release it. Say what is true, gently. When you drop the mask, the psychological energy required to hold it up returns to you. That is energy you can now use to heal and rest. 17. Seijaku. Tranquility in activity. We often assume we need a silent cabin in the woods to find peace. But Japan is a land of dense, noisy cities. Seijaku is the deep tranquility and silence that can be accessed in the midst of chaos. It is the calm inside the storm. Think of the Japanese businessman sitting perfectly still with his eyes closed on the Yamanote line, a train packed like sardines. The train car rattles, announcements blare, bodies press in from all sides, and yet his face is as still as a lake at dawn. He is not sleeping, he is practicing Seijaku. This is the realization that stillness is a state of mind, not a state of volume. I used to get enraged by noise. The coffee grinder, the traffic, the open-plan office chatter. I thought these things were preventing my peace. A monk at a Rinza Zen temple in Kyoto corrected me. We were in a garden with a small waterfall that crashed onto rocks, and the city hummed beyond the walls. He said, "You think the traffic is disturbing you. But you are the one who decided to let the traffic inside your mind. Seijaku is the discipline of keeping the door closed. You access it by anchoring your awareness in your body, perhaps the slight pressure of your feet on the floor or the expansion of your rib cage, while the world screams around you. You do not fight the noise. You let it pass through the room without offering it a chair. I practiced this in a Shibuya pachinko parlor once, a deliberate challenge. The electronic bells and cigarette smoke formed a wall of chaos. I planted my feet on the sticky floor, breathed into my belly, and found a pocket of absolute silence in the center of my own head. It was still there, untouched. Try it the next time you are in a crowded waiting room. Do not grab your phone. Do not fidget. Plant your feet, straighten your back, and find the silence that exists 1 millimeter beneath the surface noise. This is your portable sanctuary. 16. Miyabi, elegance in the mundane. Modern life is profoundly crude. We inhale fast food over a sink. We wear pajamas until noon. We grunt at our partners. Miyabi is the counterbalance to this decay. It means courtly elegance and refinement, an elimination of the vulgar. This is not about wealth or snobbery. It is about treating your own life with enough respect to beautify it. A Japanese grandmother who places a single pickled plum on a handcrafted ceramic dish before eating it alone is practicing miyabi. She is saying, "This moment matters. I matter." I remember watching an old woman in a threadbare kimono set out her evening meal in a tiny Kyoto machiya. The plum glistened like a jewel on a small celadon plate. She paused, looked at it, and seemed to thank it with her eyes before she lifted her chopsticks. The whole room smelled of aged wood and the faint brine of umeboshi. That image cracked something open in me. When I started applying this, I changed one habit. I stopped drinking my morning coffee from a chipped promotional mug and poured it into a ceramic cup that felt heavy and sacred. It took 5 extra seconds, but the experience shifted from a caffeine injection to a morning ritual. The warmth seeped into my palms, the earthy smell rose, and I was suddenly a human being beginning a day, not a machine refueling. Miyabi transforms you from a consumer into a celebrant. To practice it, slow down physically. Choose the beautiful pen over the cheap plastic one. Fold your blanket with precision. Speak with gentle, chosen words instead of blurting out noise. When you eliminate the crude, the mind feels safer. It is a silent signal to your psyche that you are not a beast scrambling for survival. You are a dignified human being conducting a ceremony. 15. Kanso, the clarity of less. Your vision of your home is a direct reflection of the state of your mind. If your desk is piled with trash, old receipts, and 3 dead coffee cups, your mental processing power is being stolen. Kanso is the principle of simplicity and the elimination of clutter. It is not stark, cold minimalism. It is the removal of the non-essential so the essential can breathe. There is a famous Zen proverb, "The bowl is most useful when it is empty." A room stuffed to the ceiling is useless. Kanso is about visual silence. A study from the Princeton Neuroscience Institute found that clutter in the visual field competes for your attention, drastically reducing your ability to focus and increasing cortisol. I tested this in my own apartment in Tokyo. It was a shoebox. Initially, I had it filled with gadgets, wires, and souvenirs from 100 impulse buys. I felt agitated every night, as if the walls were pressing in. I got rid of 70% of my stuff, keeping only items that served a purpose or had deep sentimental value. The surface of my desk became a plain wood expanse. The moment I did that, my brain, which had been unconsciously tracking every book and cable, let out a sigh of relief. I could feel the room exhale. The light from the single window suddenly seemed brighter and softer. Your brain is not built for visual noise. Take a trash bag right now. Walk through your room. Pick up everything that does not add utility or beauty. Throw it out or donate it. Wipe the surfaces down until they are bare. You are not just cleaning your room. You are scrubbing the visual noise from your retinas and telling your amygdala that the war is over. 14. Fukansei, asymmetry as freedom. The Western pursuit of a balanced life is often a source of immense suffering. We try to allocate equal time to work, fitness, family, and hobbies, and we fail miserably every week. Fukansei is the principle of asymmetry and controlled irregularity. It is the acceptance that perfect symmetry is a lie, both in art and in life. Look at Japanese pottery or a traditional Zen garden. It is never perfectly symmetrical. A rock is placed off-center. A flower arrangement has a deliberate leaning branch. This is because asymmetry is alive. A perfect circle is dead. Humans are organic, imperfect beings. I once visited a pottery kiln in Shigaraki and watched a craftsman pull a bowl from the wheel. It was slightly lopsided, the rim dipping on one side like a natural shoreline. He ran his thumb along the imperfection and smiled. "The flaw is where the soul lives," he said. "I used to write rigid schedules. 45 minutes of exercise, an hour of writing, exactly 30 minutes of reading. If I missed one block, I labeled myself a failure, and the whole day was thrown in the trash." That is the tyranny of the geometric mind. When I embraced Fukinsei, I started navigating my week like a calligrapher painting a wild brushstroke. Some strokes are thick and heavy with work. Some are light and wispy with rest. There is no grid. There is just flow. A day where you gave 90% to work and 10% to your health is not a failed day. It is a Fukinsei day. The peace comes not from fixing the imbalance, but from accepting that the imbalance is the natural pattern of the season. Let your weeks be a scroll painting, not a spreadsheet. The relief is immediate. 13. The power of the pause. Our culture is terrified of silence. If there is a 3-second gap in conversation, we cram it with a nervous joke. Our calendars have 0 white space. We quantify our worth by how utterly packed our schedule is. Ma is the celebration of negative space. It is the pause between the notes that makes the music beautiful. It is the emptiness in a room that allows you to appreciate the few objects within it. Without Ma, everything is just noise. The most intense example of Ma I ever witnessed was a no-theater performance in Kyoto. The actor would move across the stage, the heavy silk robes dragging over the cypress floor with a slow hush. He would stop, lift the fan, and hold a pose for what felt like an eternity. The audience, sitting in the shadowy glow of the wooden hall, did not cough or shuffle. They sat with the silence. In that silence, the meaning of the gesture bloomed. The air itself felt thick and sacred. In your life, Ma means deliberately creating gaps in your schedule. It means not putting in headphones the second you step outside. Let there be boredom. Let there be a gap between one meeting and the next, or you just stare out the window. I schedule empty blocks on my calendar called Ma time. It sounds insane to block off time to do nothing. But it is in that nothing that the brain processes trauma, connects ideas, and regenerates. I once sat on a park bench in Osaka for 20 minutes without a phone, watching the light shift through the Zelkova trees. By the end, a solution to a problem I had wrestled with for days simply arrived, fully formed, as if it had been waiting for the silence. An unscheduled hour can bring more clarity than a fully packed day. Do not fill the gap, protect the gap. 12. Shinrin-yoku, forest medicine. Peace is a biochemical state as much as a spiritual one. You cannot reason your way out of a cortisol spike. You need to physically alter your blood chemistry. Shinrin-yoku, directly translated as forest bathing, is the Japanese practice of walking slowly through a forest and breathing in the volatile organic compounds called phytoncides that trees emit. This is not some folk superstition. Studies from the Nippon Medical School in Tokyo have measured the effects. After a session of forest bathing, subjects showed a significant reduction in blood pressure, pulse rate, and cortisol levels. It also boosted the activity of natural killer cells, which fight cancer and viruses. The mechanism is physical. I remember the first time I truly forest bathed in the cedar forests of Nagano. The air was green and cool, heavy with the scent of resin and wet moss. I took off my shoes and felt the springy give of the trail under my soles. I leaned against a massive sugi trunk and could hear the faint creak of the wood swaying, the distant trickle of a stream. My breathing slowed without my permission. When I first moved back to the U.S. after years in Japan, My anxiety spiked within weeks. The suburban landscape of asphalt and strip malls felt like a sensory desert. I drove 2 hours to a state park. I took off my shoes. I walked on the moss. I inhaled the smell of damp earth and pine. Within 20 minutes, the tightness behind my eyes was gone. You do not need to hike a mountain. Go to a city park. Find the biggest, oldest tree, stand under it, touch the bark. Close your eyes and just inhale deeply for 10 breaths. Do not listen to a podcast. Do not count your steps. Just exchange the stale air of your cubicle for the ancient chemical breath of the forest. It is the cheapest, most powerful drug on the planet. 11. Misogi. Washing the soul. We wash our hands to remove dirt, but we rarely wash our spirits. Misogi is a Shinto purification ritual, historically involving standing under a freezing waterfall to cleanse the body and spirit. You see practitioners in white robes, chanting as the icy water pounds their shoulders. You might not have a sacred waterfall, but the principle of deliberate purification is essential for mental peace. The day accumulates spiritual grime. A rude email, a flash of jealousy, a moment of self-loathing. These stick to us. Misogi is the decision to wash them off before they harden into a layer of chronic bitterness. I started a modern misogi practice that shocked me with its effectiveness. Every evening before I sleep, I shower in the dark. I stand under the hot water, and I visualize the water as actual light, not just water. I imagine it dissolving the frustration from the traffic jam, the stupid argument I had, and the fear about money. I literally watch the gray water circle the drain and I tell myself, that was just dirt. It is not my identity. The steam rises around me like incense. The Japanese often end their bath ritual with a final splash of cool water to tighten the skin and wake the mind. Do that. Let the cold shock at the end snap you out of your ruminative trance. It takes your breath away and you laugh involuntarily because you are suddenly back in your body. When you step out of that shower, you are reborn. You are clean. The day has no claim on the night. 10. Shoto. Moving meditation. The monkey mind cannot be fought with brute force. If I tell you to sit still and think of nothing, you will immediately think about your taxes and that embarrassing thing you said in 2008. Shoto is the way of Japanese calligraphy, using brush, sumi ink, and washi paper. It is a moving meditation that tricks the mind into stillness by giving the body a hyper-focused task. You cannot grind your ink, load the brush, and execute a perfect horizontal stroke while worrying about tomorrow. The moment the brush touches the paper, your entire world shrinks to a point of contact. The ink is indelible. There is no Control plus Z. You have to commit. I remember the scent of the sumi ink stick as I rubbed it on the stone, a sharp, earthy perfume that filled my small practice room. The sound was a soft, grinding hush. In Japan, I took lessons from a stern old woman who would slap my wrist if my breathing was wrong. The line is a lie detector, she said. If you were angry, the ink would bleed aggressively. If you were hesitant, the line would wobble. To make the character beautiful, you must be empty. One afternoon, after a fight with a friend, I sat down and tried to write the character for eternity. The first stroke was jagged, the ink splattering black tears. She took the brush from my hand, set it down, and made me breathe for 5 minutes before I tried again. The second attempt flowed like dark silk. You do not need to be a master. Buy a cheap brush pen and some newsprint. Sit at your kitchen table. Draw a single straight line from left to right. Exhale as you draw. Draw it again and again. When your mind drifts, the line will crack. Notice it, reset, and breathe. This is the cultivation of mushin, the no-mind state we will discuss soon. It is active rest. It is the art of being so deeply focused on a single stroke that the entire universe of anxiety is locked out. 9. Shuharai. The path to effortless mastery. Inner peace is often destroyed by the frustration of learning. We try a new habit, we fail, we feel worthless, and we quit. Shuha-rai is the Japanese concept of the 3 stages of mastery that cures this. It is a progression from discipline to transcendence. Shu means to obey. You copy the masters exactly. You do not innovate. You just replicate the rules faithfully and humbly. Ha means to detach. Once you understand why the rules exist, you break them. You find your own style. You tweak the recipe. Rai means to transcend. You no longer follow rules. You do not break rules. You are the rule. Everything flows effortlessly from your deep, integrated wisdom. Think of a sushi chef. For 10 years, he just massages the rice shu. Then he starts to adjust the pressure ha. Then one day, his hands dance without thought, creating perfect pieces that no one else can replicate rai. I once ate at a tiny counter in Tsukuji where the chef, a man in his 80s with trembling fingers, produced nigiri that seemed to breathe on the plate. He told me, I made 20,000 mistakes before the fish accepted me. I used to quit everything after the shu phase because I hated the boredom. But understanding this philosophy gave me patience. I realized my suffering came from trying to transcend before I had obeyed. I wanted to be the jazz master before I had learned the scales. Apply Shuha-rai to any source of stress in your life, whether it is learning a language or learning to be a calm person. First, just copy the habits of a calm person. Fake it perfectly. Obey the script. Eventually, you will detach and find your own rhythm. Finally, calmness will not be a performance. It will be your nature. Knowing this curve exists makes the initial struggle sacred instead of depressing. 8. Nintai and Gammon, the Stoic engine. These 2 concepts are the steel backbone of the Japanese spirit. Nintai means persistence with dignity. Gammon means enduring the seemingly unbearable with patience and self-control. They are often translated as resilience, but that feels too soft. It is the quiet, grim refusal to scream when life is crushing you. In the West, we see endurance as passive suffering. In Japan, it is an active force. I witnessed true gammon during the Tohoku earthquake aftermath. People stood in orderly lines for food and water in the freezing cold. There was no looting, no hysterics. Shopkeepers gave out goods for free. The world was a disaster, but the people held the social fabric together through sheer, dignified endurance. Now I need to offer one honest caution. Gammon is not a call to tolerate abuse or to stay silent in the face of real injustice. It is the patience for inevitable daily suffering, the traffic jam, the delayed flight, the grinding workday, not for accepting cruelty. Use it wisely. When I face a chaotic day, a traffic jam, a delayed flight, or a screaming toddler, I often feel the urge to externalize the pain. I want to punch the wheel or snap at someone. Nintai is the act of swallowing that fire, not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to contain it. It is the choice not to become a shrieking victim of circumstance. I remember sitting on an expressway bus from Tokyo to Osaka, stuck behind an accident for 4 hours. The heat was stifling, the bathroom a distant dream. Next to me, an old woman in a silk scarf simply closed her eyes, breathed slowly, and never once complained. Her stillness was contagious. To practice this, shut your mouth when you want to complain. Literally bite your tongue gently if you have to. Straighten your spine, breathe slowly, tell yourself this is a gammon moment. I am building my spiritual backbone. When you develop this muscle, you become an island. The typhoon of chaos can rage around you, but your interior remains stable, solid, and almost amused by the storm. 7. Shikata Gonai. The art of release. Once you have endured everything you can, there is still the category of things you simply cannot influence. Holding on to these things is insanity. Shikata Gonai translates literally to "it cannot be helped." The West often misinterprets this as fatalism or laziness. It is the opposite. It is the radical wisdom of distinguishing between a puzzle and a tragedy. A puzzle can be solved. A tragedy must be accepted. If a typhoon wipes out your garden, that is shikata ganai. If you get laid off because a hedge fund made a bad bet, that is shikata ganai. I had a flight canceled during typhoon season in Okinawa. I was trapped at Naha Airport as the wind howled, and the rain sheeted sideways across the tarmac. The Americans in the terminal were shrieking at the gate agents, demanding alternative flights, their faces red and veins popping. The Japanese travelers quietly pulled out their pillows, sat on the floor, and started reading. One family laid out a small picnic of onigiri from a convenience store and ate in silence, watching the storm. They understood the wind does not negotiate. The wasted energy of fighting immovable objects is the source of massive neurosis. Think of your life right now. What is a situation you obsess over every night that you have absolutely zero power to change? Perhaps it is a past breakup, an economic downturn, or a parent's opinion. You are trying to solve a tragic fact as if it were a logical puzzle. You must say the words shikata ganai out loud. Feel the tension in your jaw melt. By accepting the absence of a solution, you stop bleeding energy. That energy can then be redirected to the things you actually can change. It is not giving up. It is surrendering a battle you have already lost so you can win the war. 6. Mono no aware, the beauty of sadness. We do not know how to handle sadness in the West. We medicate it, avoid it, or replace it with cheap entertainment. Mono no aware is the pathos of things. It is a gentle, wistful sadness at the impermanence of life. It is the lump in your throat when you see cherry blossoms falling at the peak of their beauty. You are sad because they are dying, but you are also profoundly moved because you are witnessing the truth of the universe. Everything passes. This is not depression. This is a deep, aesthetic appreciation that makes you feel alive. When I was living in Japan, I would often sit by the Kamigawa River in Kyoto during the sunset. The willow branches would drag in the water, and the sky would shift through layers of pink and gold that faded too fast. I would think about my parents aging back home, about the fleeting nature of my own youth, about the friends who had drifted away. The water would murmur over the stones, never the same sound twice. I would let the sadness wash over me, and then, strangely, I would feel an immense gratitude. Because if things were permanent, they would be worthless. The fact that this evening walk with my dog will never, ever happen again is exactly what makes it sacred. You find inner peace by stopping the war against melancholy. Stop chasing permanent happiness. That is a fool's errand. Instead, realize that the bittersweet ache in your chest while watching a child play in a fountain is not a malfunction. It is your soul detecting truth. Let it crack you open. The crack is where the affection for life gets in. 5. Futishin. The immovable mind. We are emotional weather vanes. One compliment sends us to the heavens. One criticism drops us into the pits. Futishin means an immovable mind. It is a state of equanimity and imperturbability. A mind that has met all the demons of life and remains not rigid, but stable. Like an iceberg, the vast mass is under the surface, unmoved by the waves. Samurai trained for this. They could not afford to panic when a sword was coming for their head. Fear was a luxury that led to death. You are not in physical combat, but the metaphorical swords are everywhere. A scary medical diagnosis, a stock market crash, a betrayal by a friend. If you fall into a vortex of anxiety, you will make terrible decisions. To develop Futishin, you must stop identifying with your emotional spikes. I visualize a deep lake. The surface might be whipped into ripples by the wind, but the deep water, 10 feet down, is perfectly still, dark, and silent. That deep water is Futishin. I once tested this during a sudden earthquake in Tokyo. The building swayed, the windows rattled, and my heart pounded. But I dropped my awareness into my belly, felt the floor as an anchor, and breathed. The shaking continued, but I was no longer a victim of it. I was observing it from a calm, deep place. When you feel panic rising, do not climb onto the surface to fight the wind. Sink down into the depths of your belly. Breathe from the diaphragm. Feel the solidity of the ground beneath you. Tell yourself, this is a surface storm. The depths are undisturbed. By refusing to be flustered, you become the only safe point in the chaos. And if you are the only safe point, you win every single psychological battle. 4. Kintsugi. The gold in the scars. Our perfectionism is killing us. We hide our failures. We use filters on our faces. We apologize for our lack of experience. Kintsugi teaches the opposite. It is the centuries-old art of repairing broken pottery with lacquer, dusted with powdered gold. When a bowl shatters, they do not throw it away. They do not try to hide the cracks with invisible glue. They highlight the damage with shining rivers of gold, because the breakage is part of the object's history. The bowl is more beautiful and literally more valuable for having been broken. This is the philosophy you must apply to your life. Your divorce, your bankruptcy, your embarrassing public failure, and your anxiety disorder are not shameful secrets. They are the golden seams. I have a scar on my hand from a stupid cooking accident, a thin white line across the base of my thumb. I used to hide it in photos, turning my palm away. After studying kintsugi, I started to see it differently. It is a mark of my journey through the kitchen, the day I learned to respect a sharp blade. It is a story. There is a famous Japanese anecdote about a tea master whose prized bowl was broken by a clumsy guest. The guests panicked. The master later meticulously repaired it with gold. When they saw it next, they wept because it was so much more moving than the original perfect bowl. You are not broken beyond repair. You are just waiting for the gold. Stop hiding the cracks. Fill them with the gold of wisdom, humor, and resilience. That is what makes you uniquely you. 3. Eugen, the hidden depths. Not everything needs to be dissected. Not everything needs a spreadsheet. The modern mind is a reductionist machine. We want to explain the mystery away. Eugen is a profound grace and subtlety that suggests a mystery beyond words. It is an awareness that the world is so deep that its beauty and emotional power can never be fully captured. It is the sight of a faint mountain half veiled in mist. You can't see the whole mountain, and that lack of information is precisely what makes it breathtaking. The most profound peace I ever felt was at a small temple on a rainy day. The fog drifted through the cedar trees, softening the green to a dreamlike wash. I could hear a bamboo flute playing somewhere in the distance, but I couldn't find the source. The notes rose and fell like breath, and I sat on a damp stone and felt the cold seep through my clothes. I couldn't explain it, quantify it, or photograph it adequately. I just let it be a mystery, and that was enough. Stop demanding answers. If you are anxious about the future, you are trying to map the hidden mountain. You want certainty where no certainty exists. Eugen invites you to find comfort in the unknown. Think of a deep conversation where someone says exactly what you needed to hear, and you feel a shiver down your spine. Do not analyze it away. Think of the infinite darkness of the night sky. Do not just think of the physics of hydrogen fusion. Feel the overwhelming, unnameable profundity of it. When you make peace with the hidden, you stop clawing at the universe for answers and start listening to its music. 2. Mushin. The flow state Mushin translates to empty mind. It is often called the state of no mind. But it does not mean a stupid, blank state. It means a mind free of fear, anger, and ego. It is the mental condition of a samurai in a duel, the brush master executing a stroke, or the baseball player seeing the ball in slow motion. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of critical self-talk, shuts off. Action happens spontaneously and perfectly without the hesitation of the conscious mind. I have experienced this only a handful of times in my career, usually on a tight deadline, when I had no time to second-guess myself. My fingers moved and words appeared on the screen that seemed to come from the ether. I was not thinking. I was witnessing the work happening. The anxiety of "am I good enough?" disappeared because there was no I present to ask the question. How do you cultivate this daily? Zen meditation, zazen, is the training ground. You sit, and you let thoughts pass like clouds without grabbing them. You are training the muscle of detachment. When you stop clinging to every thought, your mind becomes like a calm pond. A pebble drops in a stimulus. The ripples expand perfectly your action, and the pond returns to stillness. Motion is the death of hesitation, and hesitation is the birthplace of anxiety. I sat in a zazen hall once in Kamakura, the sharp smell of incense mixing with the sound of rain on the roof. A monk walked behind us with a kyosaku stick, ready to strike our shoulders if we drifted off. For 20 minutes I chased my breath. And then, for a few moments, there was nothing but the sound of rain and the weight of my hands in my lap. That was mushin. To practice it, start with washing the dishes. Only wash the dishes. Feel the water, watch the bubbles, move the sponge. And if a thought about your taxes intrudes, bow to it and let it go. You are rewiring your brain to operate in the only moment that is real. 1. Ikigai, the reason to wake up. And finally, the philosophy that makes all the others work. The ultimate antidote to despair. Number 1 is Ikigai. This is the Japanese concept of a reason for being. It is often called that which makes life worth living. It sits at the intersection of what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you are good at. But it is deeper than that. In Okinawa, the land of the immortals, there is no word for retirement. They simply wake up every day with a reason to do it. A 95-year-old fisherman does not fish for money. He fishes because that is his ikigai. A 102-year-old woman weaving baskets is not counting the minutes. She is in motion, serving her purpose. I once met an elderly man in Ajami village, his face etched like a topographical map. He tended a small vegetable garden with the tenderness of a nurse. When I asked him why he still worked the soil at 90, he looked at me as if I had asked why he breathed. "The cucumbers need me," he said, and his smile cracked the morning. Without ikigai, all the meditation techniques in the world are just pain management. With ikigai, suffering becomes bearable. When I was lost in my early 30s, jumping from project to project, deeply depressed, a Japanese elder asked me, "What is your ikigai?" I said I didn't know. He laughed and said, "Then your job is to find it. The search is the life. The vegetables you plant while searching are your dinner." Ikigai does not have to be a career. It can be caring for your grandchildren, perfecting a specific type of craft, or simply being the person who keeps the community garden beautiful. To find your ikigai, stop looking for a paycheck. Ask yourself what makes you forget to eat. Ask yourself what act makes you feel like you are contributing to a larger harmony. Once you find that slender thread, tie your heart to it. When you have a reason to be, no amount of external noise can shake the foundation of your peace. You are not just existing, you are serving a purpose. These 20 philosophies are not a checklist to be rushed through. They are a wardrobe. Some days you need the heavy coat of gammon to endure a winter of grief. Other days you need the light silk of Datsuzoku to break free of stagnation. Do not try to master them all today. Pick one that felt like a splinter in your mind, a specific one that addressed the pain you felt this morning. Write it down. Stare at it and live it just for tonight. See what happens to the silence in your room when the mental machinery finally turns off. The Japanese have been safeguarding this quiet wisdom for centuries, not in textbooks, but in their tea bowls, their gardens, and their breathing. And now it is yours. Start building that fortress of peace, one gold-filled crack at a time.